Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Divya. Welcome to Visual Vibes. In this Python course, I'm gonna teach you everything that you need to learn to start coding with Python. This course doesn't cost you anything, it's totally free for you. But if you would like to help me out, then you can increase its reach by hitting a like button, leave a random comment down below, share, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thanks in advance, and I really appreciate it. Without getting any delay, let's jump right in. Today I will explain you about loop statements in Python. Before we see the actual topic, I would like to mention you one thing. So if you are new to the Python course or if this is your first visit to my channel, then I would like to recommend you to check out my earlier sessions of this video first and then get back here for a clear understanding as well as to follow some sequence. Now let's see loop statements in Python. So generally I can say a loop is the one that refers to the process that repeats itself, like a circular path or a repeated cycle. So in the same way, loop statements are the ones that are used to execute a single statement or a group of statements repeatedly, either specified number of times or n number of times till a particular condition is satisfied. So if you want to execute a statement or a set of statements repeatedly for n number of times until the particular condition is satisfied, then we can make use of loop statements in Python. So we have three main types of loop statements in Python. That includes for loop, while loop, and nested loops. When it comes to for loop, we have one category. So we are going to see how we can make use of for loop along with the else statement. And we have two categories in case of while loop. That is using else statement along with while loop and infinite while loop. And we have two categories under nested loops. That is nested for loop. That includes nested for loop and nested while loop. Now let's see each one of them in detail. For loop is also a type of loop which is used to iterate or loop through set of items in a sequence. So in sequence in Python, we have seen sequence data types, right? That includes list, tuple, set, string, range, and dictionary. So those all data types holds a list of elements in it, right? So that comes under a sequence. So while using the for loop, we usually needs two variables. First one is to loop through or to store the successive values from that sequence. And the second variable refers to any Python object that includes list, tuple, string, set, range, and dictionary. So if you can see the syntax of for loop, it usually starts with the for keyword initially, followed by the variable name. So this is the variable that I was referring to, the first variable, which is used to iterate through the sequence. So for variable in sequence. So in place of sequence, we can replace any kind of list, tuple, string, set, range, and dictionary. So any set of elements that comes under sequence, followed by colon at the end. And inside the for loop, we have the block or set of statements that will go. So this is the syntax of the for loop. So if you can clearly see the example. So here I have defined one list. So I have defined one variable that holds the list of fruits in it, mango, orange, and kiwi. So I want to loop through each and every item, every fruit in this list. So here I want to loop through mango, I want to loop through orange, and I want to loop through kiwi. All the three sets of fruits I want to loop through. So for that, I'm going to make use of this for loop. So this for loop, what it will do mean, it will loop through each and every item that is present in this list. So for I have defined initially and then followed by the variable name. Here the variable name is item. You can give any variable name. So this is a placeholder, just like a placeholder to loop through each and every item. So you can mention any variable name. So I have given the name as item. In sequence, what is the sequence here? We have the sequence as list. So that variable name is fruits and followed by the colon at the end. And inside this for loop, for each and every item that I was looping through in this list, I want to print that item. So that's why I have given print of item. So this is about, so for the first 1, 2, 3 lines or for loop. So I have told you, right, in case of for loop, we have one category that is using the else statement along with the for loop. So this is the whole example for using the else statement along with the for loop. So here after iteration of each and every item in this list, then it falls under the else block. So inside this else block, I have given inside else block after iteration. So this is how you can make use of else statement as well as with the for loop. So if you can see the output, it iterates through each and every item so that, so first it comes here, it will check this condition, not condition. So first it comes here, first for the first item, it finds the first item in this list. The first item is mango, so it will print the mango. Next, again, it will move on to the second item, orange, and it will print the second item. So similarly, for the last item, it will iterate through and then it will bring the last item. So now it's completed iterating through all items in the list. So that's why it falls under, next time it falls under else block. So finally it prints this statement. So this is how the for loop works. Now let's see the flow chart for the for loop. So initially when the for loop starts, so for this set of statement, it is going to ready to loop through each and every item in that particular sequence. So when it comes to the first item, so when it found the first item or when the control comes to the first item, it will check whether that first item is present actually or it is empty. So if the item is present in the list, then it executes the set of or block of statements inside that for loop. And then it move on to the next set of item in the sequence. If it doesn't find another item in that list, then it goes in this path, like it will stop, means it comes out of the for loop and whatever the statements, for example, we have a else statement, right? So once the execution of for statement is done, or if there are no items in the in the list or in the sequence, then it stop executing the for loop and then it executes finally the set of statements after the for loop. So this is how the flowchart on the for loop looks like. So next we have while loop in Python. While loop is also a type of loop that is used to repeat or execute a single statement or a group of statements until a given condition is false. So in case of for loop, we have seen that for loop is executed a set of statements for each and every item that is present in the sequence. So when it comes to while loop, if we want to execute a set of statements until a given condition is false, then we can make use of while loop. So let's say suppose the time the condition becomes false or fails, then the control doesn't enter into the for loop. Then the control doesn't enter into the for loop. Instead, it will get transferred to the next set of statements that are present after the loop. So if we can see the syntax of the while loop here. So here initially it is started with while keyword and then followed by some condition. So in place of this condition, we can give any conditions using comparison and logical operators that we have, followed by colon at the end, and then a set or block of statements inside this while condition. So this is the general syntax of the while loop. But if you can see the example of this while loop example mainly consists of 4 steps that we initially or generally need to follow. The first step is to about initializing a variable. Whenever we are going to use while loop, first step is to initialize a variable. And after that, we need to set up the loop condition using this syntax while whatever the condition that we are going to apply that we need to give here. So once we give the loop condition, inside that loop, we need to specify the set of statements that we are going to run or execute. Once the statements are specified, the fourth step is to increment the variable. So initially we have initialized at starting we have initialized one variable, right? So when it comes to the fourth step, that variable we need to increment. Now let's see the example what is happening here. So here I have initially declared one variable counter initializer with 0. So after that I have set up one loop condition while followed by the while keyword and the variable name. This is about the condition. So counter less than 3. So initially the counter is having 0. So I want to execute the set of statements until the counter becomes 3. Okay. And inside this while loop, I have specified the statement that I want to execute. So I'm printing the counter is whatever the counter value is there, the time that is executing this condition. So I want to print that counter value. And after that, I want to increment this counter value. So for the next so initially the counter value is 0, right? So next time, if this counter value, if this condition is going to check, the next time it is going to check this condition, this value needs to be incremented. So that's why we need to increment the variable as part of fourth step. So forget about this else now. So this is all about the syntax or the steps that we need to follow while using the while loop. So if you can see the output of this example, initially it is initialized with 0. The counter is initialized with 0. Then it comes to the third line. So now it checks counter less than 3. Counter value is 0, 0 less than 3. So the condition is satisfied. It comes into the loop and then it prints the statement saying that counter is 0. And then here it increments the value of counter from 0 to 1. And then it again move to the next set of condition. So now this time the counter value becomes 1. So 1 less than 3. So count condition is satisfied. It comes into the loop and then it prints this statement counter is 1. And then it increments the value from 1 to 2. Next time the counter value becomes 2, 2 less than 3. So the condition is satisfied. Next time it prints this condition, prints this statement. And then again increments the counter value to 3. So next time when it is going to check the condition, 3 less than 3 is false. So it comes out of the loop. Here the condition becomes false. So it doesn't enter into the loop inside. So instead it comes out of this loop, and whatever the statements we have out of this loop, it is going to execute those set of statements. So after this while loop, we have else block. So it falls under this else block, and it's going to print inside else block after a while. So that is the last set of statements that we have here. So this example is covering while loop, how we can make use of while loop, as well as using the while loop along with the else statement. So this is how while loop works. Now let's see the flowchart of the while loop. So initially, whenever the while loop starts, the first step is to check the condition. So whatever the condition we will mention in that particular line, so it is going to check that condition. If the condition becomes true, then only it enters into the loop and then executes the set of statements that are present in the body. Once those statements are executed, or if it prints those statements, then if you want to it increments. So in the middle, before it checks another condition, in the middle, incrementation is going to happen, right? So after incrementation, then it go to check the condition with that incrementation value. So if this time the condition becomes true, means then same process gets repeated. If the condition becomes false, means then it comes out of the while condition. So whatever the statements inside the while, since it doesn't enter into the while loop, so the statements inside the while loop will not be executed. The control jumps out of the while loop, and the statements which are present outside the while loop will be executed, and the process become stop here. So this is how the flowchart of the while loop looks like and works. And in case of while loop, we have another category. The first category we have already seen that using the else statement using while loop. And the next category is about infinite while loop. Suppose if we have a scenario where we want to execute a block of code or set of statements infinite number of times, not for the specified number of times, then we're gonna use infinite while loop. So here you can see the example. So here I have declared one condition while of true. So in the syntax, if you can see, we have while condition. So whenever the condition becomes true, then only it enters into the loop. But here at the starting itself, I was giving the condition as a true. So inside the brackets, I was giving the condition as a true. So every time this condition becomes true only. So every time since this condition becomes true, so it always enters into the loop and then it prints this statement. So that's why this loop is never ending loop and gonna print the statement infinite number of times. So here if we can, here I have given the screenshot specifying these many number of times, but this is gonna print this statement or execute this statement an infinite number of times. So you also can check from your side by specifying the condition like this, and then you can see in your IDE how it is going to work. So this is about infinite while loop. Now let's move on to the last type, nested while loop. So nested while loop. So nested while loop is the one that allows the loop inside another loop. Let's say suppose we have a loop. Inside that loop, if you specify another loop, then that loop we can call as a nested loop. Like that, we can specify n number of nested loops inside another loop. So if you want to execute some set of conditions inside that particular loop, then we can make use of this nested while loop. So we have two categories that falls under a nested while loop. One is nested for loop and the other one is nested while loop. So let's see the syntax of nested for loop first. So here, this is the main loop, or I can say outer loop. So normally how we can specify the for loop for variable name in sequence, right? So here I have given this set of statement, and inside this, followed by the indentation, we have another loop for variable in sequence. This may be another sequence, this may be another sequence. So this loop, we can call as inner for loop. And the set of statements that will go inside this inner for loop are these set of statements. So when the control comes out of this inner for loop, we have the outer for loop, right? So we have the set of statements that are belong to outer for loop. So this is the syntax of nested for loop. So like this, we can, if you want to give one more nested loop inside this inner loop, you can also give a number of nested loops like this. But for simplification, or I can say this is the general syntax for nested for loop. Now let's see the nested while loop. So here we can define while loop. Similarly, we can define the while condition initially. So this loop comes under main or outer while loop. So followed by this main or outer while loop, we have nested while loop, specifying the condition and the set of statements inside this inner while loop we have. So once we specify the nested while loop, then the control comes out of the loop, and we have the set of statements that belong to outer while loop. So like this, we can specify n number of nested while loops inside the specified nested while loop here. Now let's see the example for nested for loop and nested while loop. So here, if you can see for nested for loop, so here I have specified the main condition or name for I in range of 1, 3. So I want to print the table, so that prints the table for two set of numbers. So here I have used the range function. So range function, what it will do means, whatever the numbers that we specify here. So here one is the starting number and the other one is ending number. So it will continuously loop through the range function until this range ends. So inside this for loop, I have specified another nested for loop, specifying for j in range of 1, 3. So here we have a one loop that comes under outer loop. Here we have inner loop that is present inside this outer loop. And then inside this inner loop, I am printing this table, specifying the numbers in this particular range. So I into j becomes equals to I into j. So here initially we have I value as 1, and when it enters inside this loop, we have the j value as 1. That equals to 1 into 1 becomes 1. So like this. Next, for the first range, if it gonna end this statement, and then it moves to the next number in that range. So next number in the range we have 2. So for 2 in this range, it's gonna print this statement like this. First, it completes the inner loop execution. Once it completes the whole range in the inner loop execution, then it move on to the outer loop, and then I becomes initialized to 2 next time. So like this, the loop continues, and then it will print the output like this. So 1 into 1 is equals to 1. So for the inner loop will execute for 2 times, because the range we have up to 3, but it will not go through 3. So for 1, starting with 1, and it goes up to 2. So 1 into 1, 1, 1 into 2, 2. So it completes the inner loop and then again it comes here. Then now I value becomes 2. For the I value becomes 2, then it again executes the inner loop for 1 and 2 numbers specified in this range. So that's how we can have this output like this. Similarly, for nested while loop also, initially we need to initialize the variable, right? So I have initialized the variable I is equals to 1, followed by the loop condition I less than or equals to 2. So whenever this condition is satisfied, it enters inside this while loop. And I have specified again since we are going to use the inner loop inside this outer loop, we need to specify initialize the variable that belongs to this inner while loop also, right? So I have initialized the variable that belongs to this while loop, j is equals to 1, and then while I'm checking while j less than or equals to 2. For this inner condition, I'm going to execute this statement I into j is equals to I into j, and then we need to increment the variable finally. So I have incremented the variable that belongs to the inner loop. And after this inner loop, we need to increment the variable that belongs to the outer loop, right? So I have incremented this variable again. The control comes here. So initially the I value becomes 1, 1 less than or equals to 2. So it comes inside this loop. J is initialized with 1. So j value becomes 1, 1 less than or equals to 2. So the condition of the inner loop becomes true. Then it prints this statement I 1 into 1 becomes 1. Again the j value becomes 2. Now again control comes here. 2 less than or equals to 2. Condition becomes true. And then it executes this statement. Next time when the j value becomes true, again this condition becomes true. So that it executes this set of statement, and finally when the condition j value becomes 3, the condition becomes false. So it comes out of this loop. Now this time I value becomes true. So for the I value becomes true, the j value becomes 1, and 1 less than or equals to 2, the condition becomes true. So it executes this set of statement 2 into 1 is equals to 2, and then in the incrementation happens again. Same the process gets repeated. Once the inner loop execution becomes completed, again the control comes here. Then next time the I value becomes 3, 3 less than or equals to 2 becomes false, and then loop is gonna end here. So this is the output of this nested while loop. 1 into 1, 1 is equals to 1, 1 into 2, 2, 2 into 1, 2, 2 into 2, 4. Now let's see the differences between for and while loop. So if in advance, if we know how many times that we want to execute the set of statements, then we can make use of for loop. Or if we want to iterate for each and every item that is present in sequence, then we can go for loop. But in case of while loop, if we don't know for how many times that we're gonna execute set of statements, or if we want to execute the set of statement based on until the condition is false, then we can make use of the while loop. So for loop, we have seen, right, it always iterates over a sequence of items. So that includes list, tuple, sets, dictionary, and range, and strings as well. Whereas while loop runs as long as the condition is true. In case of for loop, it automatically updates or stores the variable. It always updates the loop variable. But in case of while loop, we only need to update the loop variable by incrementing the value. So in case of for loop variable is often declared in the loop header. So loop variable we have already seen in the syntax, right? For variable in sequence, that variable we only need to declare in the loop header. But here in case of while loop, instead of declaring the loop variable in the header of the while loop, we need to declare the loop variable before the loop is going to start. So in case of for loop, looping automatically stops after the last item or the particular range ends. But in case of while loop, looping only stops once the condition becomes false. So these are some major differences between for loop and while loop. So we have seen what are loop statements and the type of loop statements and those syntaxes and the examples of those loop statements and the categories that falls under those loop statements clearly today. So this is all about loop statements in Python. So that's all for today. I hope you like this session. If you have any doubts, feel free to post them in the comment section. We'll definitely answer your questions, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care, goodbye, and enjoy programming.